Stun, mid-range, combo, control. These are all words that you might have heard when trying to describe your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh deck, or when trying to segregate your noble playstyle against your opponent's barbaric win conditions. But when you step back and really think about it, what do these terms even mean? This monologue is brought to you by a post I saw on our Master Duel simply asking, how many floodgates does a deck need to be considered a floodgate deck? And the comments correctly pointed out that it's not about the size of the floodgate count, but rather the game plan. If your win condition is Macrocosmos on legs, you might be at risk of a floodgate label. But that got me thinking, where do we draw the line? Is it about the amount of monsters you summon, the amount of activations you go through, or is it more about your end board? To me, Flower Guardians is a quintessential combo deck, being able to use their special abilities to draw 1,000,000 cards, summon out 1,000,000,000 cards, take off trillions of years off your lifespan, and end on a board with maybe 1 or 2 negates. I've always preferred the definition of, do I need a spreadsheet to make an end board with a semblance of viability? But I'm not so sure all these weaker combo decks can clear the hurdle of viable. I guess the sciencey part in my brain just wants a critical X where we go from a mid-range deck to a combo deck. But where things really get funky is when we start talking about decks that meld these titles together. Branded and Sword Soul were at one point in time considered to be the quintessential mid-range deck, being able to pump out 3 or 4 negates within a few summons. Then at one point, Konami released Albion, the Sanctifier Dragon, and released Arch-Nemesis Protoss from the ban list, allowing both decks to dip their feet into the unholy puddle of stun. Branded also had like a Brandillion cards added to their card pool, and also removed from their pool, that constantly ballooned the complexity of the deck and the simplicity of their mid-ranges. Sometimes the meta calls ask you to put some sussy cards in your deck, like when Labyrinth builds were divided into the Furniture build, or IKEA build, and the Stun build, which would play cards like Skill Drain. This is also ignoring that despite being a flagship resource-heavy control deck, the citizens of the Silver Castle had no qualms making a deal with the D-Barrier Devil. There's also a long time when you could click on any topping Sky Striker list and know without even reading it that there's definitely a Mystic Mine somewhere in here. It's also entirely possible to switch your deck's identity without changing any of the cards. For example, Tearlament was always known to be this really interesting deck that could weave between mid-range and combo depending on the cards that they gambled on, but they never really fell into the whole stun label. That is until everybody started playing Tearlament, and your gadget rank 4 Abyss Dweller went from occasional summon to how do I get this out before my opponent. And that challenges the whole concept of the game plan being important for these labels. In Master Duel, there are about 45 decks that are willing to settle on a Bagooska Pass, should their interesting combo lines be threatened by a Maxi. There's also the whole aspect of favoritism, where decks like GX's Destiny Heroes get lauded for being able to summon out Skill Drain on legs, Macrocosmos on legs, and Imperial Order on legs. Comparatively, just holding a Fossil Dyna Pachycephalo and a few Solemn Judgments might have you at risk of a microaggression. I think my favorite part of the whole discussion is how Stun moved from this abstract concept into a deck itself, focused around Fossil Dyna, the barrier statues, and about 5 set cards. Because of course they opened Extravagance. That nomenclature then became co-opted by decks like Runic when they ran their Runic Stun variant and started slotting in their floodgates. Now, I'll be the first to admit, the brain rot hasn't completely wasted away my brain, and I understand why people use these terms. It's much more convenient to say that you're a control deck than explain how the +1 off engage helped you set up your win condition 10 turns down the line. And when a new deck comes out and you see that they can run Dimensional Shifter, it's much easier to just look at them and go, stun. But I guess if we play a game where rules and interactions are decided by your head judge on that day at that time, I guess having a few wishy-washy terms to describe our decks can't be that bad. After all, we play a game with over... And hey, if you made it this far, subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Rants. I like making them, so I'm gonna keep doing it. Bye-bye. It's not about the size of the floodgate count, but rather the game plan. God damn. Would have been banned for YCS for that.